What's up, guys? I'm Sci-Hi, and Neon Dynasty has finally dropped, which means we can finally get to brewing a lot of new decks, as well as take a look at existing standard and historic decks, and see how they're going to benefit from a lot of these new cards that have come out with the new set. And today, we're going to do just that. We're going to look at a powerful historic archetype in auras and look at kind of an experimental new twist on it. And I guess when I say experimental, it's really not too experimental because obviously this is a well-established archetype. After all, I think Jim Davis just piloted an Azorius Auras build in Historic to #1 Mythic very early in the season. So this isn't too crazy or radical of an idea, but it definitely is a new twist on the mono white auras deck, which I've done a video in the past. If you haven't check that out. Definitely check that out. That goes into great detail about why this build is the way it is and how it's hyper-focused monocolor to maximize consistency and leverage the power of these auras and powerful enabling creatures like Kor Spiritdancer, etc. So we'll get into it, but definitely like and subscribe the video if you haven't already. I'll be exploring lots of new historic and standard brews and look at existing archetypes, how they may benefit from a lot of the new cards. So definitely stay tuned for more if you like this content, but we can dive right into things. So this, of course, is the mono white auras deck, which I've talked about in the past, and the big twist now is this new fox, Light-Paws, Emperor's Voice. If you're not familiar with this guy yet, he's a 2/2 legendary creature, and whenever an aura enters the battlefield under your control, if you cast it, you may search your library for an aura card with mana value less than or equal to that aura and with a different name than each aura you control. Put that card on the battlefield attached to Light-Paws, Emperor's Voice, then shuffle your deck. Now, this is really interesting and certainly a card that obviously, piques your curiosity. How can this fit into auras? It definitely can. Certainly has synergy here. It's a very interesting effect. Now that we can search for auras directly, this makes the deck much more toolboxy in that we can just find the right aura that we need given the current game state. Now, the interesting thing about Light-Paws Emperor's Voice is that it's, in a lot of ways, it's better than a Sram Senior Edificer, which just whenever you cast an aura in this deck, you're drawing a card. But there are some ways in which it's worse. For example, if you're kind of later in the game and you've already built up a decent mana base, you cast an aura and you get to search for an aura, put it on Light-Paws Emperor's Voice, and that's great. But if you want to just keep chaining and drawing auras, this thing isn't going to do that for you. However, it is a lot better than a SRAM Senior Edificer effect in that it maximizes your mana value. So you're casting an aura, and you say you cast an aura for 2, whereas SRAM you'd be drawing a card, potentially maybe hitting another aura to continue chaining, but you have to cast that aura. So obviously with Light-Paws, you just get that new aura for free, and it's a direct search, so you don't have the risk of like just drawing a land and stopping your chaining effect. So it's certainly different. It's got a little bit of pros and cons, but definitely a lot of upside. And needless to say, it can just fit right along with SRAM and Kor Spiritdancer. Of course, Kor Spiritdancer is the OG and the absolute bomb of the deck that really sets this deck apart and brings it to tier 1 status in Mythic. But these cards can all harmonize and play nicely with each other. And now that we have this effect where we get to search directly for auras, that makes this deck kind of different in that we can now have much more of a toolbox effect like I was describing earlier. So we've configured this deck just for that fact. You're going to see a lot of one-ofs in this deck, and we can dive into the individual card choices now and take a look at what we've got going on. So like the previous video we talked about, this is just a hyper-focused mono white deck. So we've got the 4 Castle Ardenvales, 21 total lands, very hyper-focused, simple mana base. We can keep a lot of hands. We just need 2 lands to function. We're not running the new legendary land from Kamigawa. I see in this deck Castle Ardenvale is just better for what we want to do. Creating 1/1s can finish the job and get there against control. So we're not running that new card yet. We want to maximize having lands that come into play untapped. We don't want to risk having a hand that's like a castle and a new legendary land. But certainly you could argue maybe one in this deck. Maybe we have 3 castles and one of that new legendary land. But just in case anyone's curious why that's not included here. But so if we dive into the auras, starting with the 1cc cards, of course we still have the 4 Cartouche of Solidarity, just a bomb. Giving the creature a +1/+1 first strike and creating a 1/1 warrior token's always good. We want to have fresh bodies on the field, so we always have targets to cast our auras on with this deck. We continue to run the 4 Esper Sentinels, just a bomb of a card. Cripples some decks, some of the spell-slinging decks just get absolutely crippled by a turn 1 of this. It's just another enabler to help you draw even more cards. It's just such a headache for your opponent to deal with if they have non-creature spells. They're just always giving you free card draws. So we're back to running the whole 4 copies of this. Then, of course, we do have the 4 Sentinel's Eyes. Again, another staple. The escape ability is good. Just a +1/+1 vigilance. Cheap, quick, efficient aura to cast on our enabling creatures. So we got 4 of those again. But now we can start to look at some of the new things. We've got a lot of one-ofs. Again, and this is all just because we have a toolbox effect in Light-Paws Emperor's Voice. We can search these up. So now we have 1 Glaring Aegis, which is just a 1cc aura. Creature gets +1/+3, and we can, when it enters the battlefield, we can tap a creature an opponent controls as well, which is nice because that's a ETB effect. So you're going to get that even if it's searched up by Light-Paws. Doesn't matter if you cast it or it just enters the battlefield. We've got another one in Radiant Grace. Again, nothing too special here. It's just a +1/+0, but does give the creature vigilance. And if the creature does die, Radiant Grace comes back and transforms as Radiant Restraints, which enchants a player. And that means whenever the player casts a creature, it enters the battlefield tapped. So not too shabby, not a bomb or anything, but just another aura that we can cast. Because remember, Light-Paws, it does matter the auras that we have in play. We have to find a different aura. So that's the reasoning, of course, for why we have so many one-ofs. We want to just keep chaining auras into play, and they need to be of different names. We also have a Solid Footing. Another 1cc enchanted creature gets +1/+1. It also has Flash, which can be relevant sometimes for surprise effects. But this one then has a very interesting clause, the last sentence, that states, as long as an enchanted creature has vigilance, the creature assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Now, there's a lot of effects to give the creature vigilance, and of course we can search them up, so it's no problem to give our creature vigilance if it doesn't already. And that effect of, I forgot what that's called, there's actually a keyword ability for when a creature deals damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. For some reason I'm blanking on the name, maybe you can help me out in the comments, but that is actually very relevant. You can start to buff some of these guys, and some of them actually have one more toughness rather than their power anyways. So that's all good and dandy, but a lot of these effects, like we looked at the Glaring Aegis, they really jack up the toughness more than the power. So that can totally be relevant, and you can use that to your advantage as you're searching up these auras to just jack up the toughness, knowing that it's going to soon deal damage equal to its toughness rather than its power once you find these specific auras. Rounding out the 1cc aura slot, we've got 1 Valor of the Worthy. Just another +1/+1 aura. This one also has a useful ability in that if the creature leaves the battlefield, note it says leaves the battlefield, so it doesn't even matter if it's exiled or something stupid. You're still going to get the 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying when the creature leaves play. So just another thing to tack on to your Light-Paws when you're searching and chaining off on these. Getting to the 2-drop spots, of course, I'm very bullish on all the glitters. I think it's a 4 of. Being that we're toolbox, you could even shave down since we can find it on demand, but I just think the card's so powerful. To me, it's what you want to do with this deck. It's the max power increase you can do with this 2cc aura in the deck. So we return again to 4 all the glitters. We've also got one Angelic Gift to search up. And remember, so when you're casting 2 CC auras, that means you can then search up 2 CC auras, whereas if you're only casting 1 CC aura, then you have to search for one of the 1 CC auras. But even if you run out of 2 CC auras to search, then you've got just a bank of all these 1-drop auras as well to continue searching. So you shouldn't really run out of ammo. I mean, by the time you start getting all of these auras in play, you've created just this giant monstrosity with all these different keyword abilities, and it's just a total powerhouse. It ramps up very quickly because, again, you don't have to cast these cards again. So there's even an argument to be made in a different spin on the brew. We could look to running spells that lower the casting cost of auras by 1, and that could make 3 casting cost auras or 2 casting cost auras, cost 1 less, and you could just chain off even faster that way. But you can really jack this guy up quickly when you're not having to cast the second aura, because again, rather than drawing another aura, you're just directly fetching it from your deck and slamming it right on top of this guy. But of course, we've got all of these creatures, like I said, working in harmony, so you're not only, you get multiple of these in play, you're drawing cards as well as searching up auras, finding exactly what you need, and it escalates very quickly. So we talked about all the glitters. We've also got 1 Angelic Gift to search up. Again, good to give a creature evasion, and again, this is an ETB effect of drawing a card, so we cast something and we can search for Angelic Gift, slam it on Light-Paws, give him flying, and immediately draw a card, which is pretty sweet. Then we get to an interesting one in Conviction. There's another 2 CC aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+3. Notice the higher toughness buff, which again is relevant with the solid footing, so you have synergy there to just jack up the toughness. Oh, by the way, I think that the keyword ability may be called Backbone, where a creature deals toughness equal to its power. Somehow that's just entering my brain now. Don't quote me on it, but I think that's called Backbone or something like that. Anyways, it's something you can do, and there's a little bit of synergy there. But beyond just adding the +1/+3, Conviction is pretty interesting in that it has this 1 white activated ability of returning Conviction to its owner's hand. This means that you can already see where this is going. This can start to snowball out of control. Once you have the mana to do it, you can start returning this to your hand and just recasting it and just continue to get these Light-Paws triggers where you're constantly searching for more cards, more auras, and you're drawing more cards, and you can continue to just keep chaining this thing to get more value out of it that way. So Conviction's a pretty interesting one-of in this deck. Something that I'm excited to explore even more of, with like reducing the casting cost of auras so that for 1 white you can cast it, 1 white return it, and as you can see, you can just start just bouncing this card and just stacking triggers, just absolute insanity, and get maximum value that way. So Conviction's definitely very interesting. We've also got the 4 Hushbringers. Again, of course, as if you've watched previous videos, I'm very bullish on Hushbringer. Apart from the ability of just shutting down ETB effects from your opponent's creatures, which is huge in the format. There's lots of Selesnya decks that just get absolutely crippled by this thing. Suddenly they're not getting their life gain triggers. This can just win the game against certain decks. So 4 of inclusion yet again here in this mono white auras deck. But even if the ETB effect isn't relevant, worst case scenario, it's still a 1/2 flyer with lifelink. And lifelink's all good when you're just jacking this thing up with mass auras, especially against like a red deck wins or burn archetype, provided they don't land some negating effect against life gain. You can just go over the top of them, gain so much life that they can't possibly win. So it's generally a very favored matchup with Hushbringer. Of course, we got the 4 Kor Spiritdancers. Nothing more to say about this, just a bomb. Obviously, casting auras, buffing. This is the best creature in the deck by far, and it's, of course, what you want to be landing your auras on, ideally, except for certain situations, obviously, depending on what game state you're in. Then we got the 4 Light-Paws. Talked about him. That's the focus, the whole point of the twist on this deck. The 4 Srams. And lastly, we've got 1 Rune of Sustenance. Another similar effect in Angelic Gift that we can search, tutor this up, put it into play, immediately draw a card, and give our creature lifelink. There may be times when you are up against like a red deck wins or a very aggressive deck, and the ability to, on demand, search for the aura that gives the creature lifelink is huge. Maybe you've got this guy jacked up, to like a 7-10 already, very quickly just from searching and stacking these auras up. And then, but you need life, and you just go search up Rune of Sustenance, give him lifelink, and you're good to go. So this deck was already strong with Kor Spiritdancer and Sram, obviously just doing the bulk of the work and the engine to get things fired. But now with Light-Paws, there's just a whole nother dimension. Now you have this way to tutor auras, but also get more auras into play without having to cast them, and kind of cheat and save half of your mana that way, as well as, of course, tutor, get the exact aura that you need. I am really excited for this card. Unfortunately, I haven't had a lot of time to test with this yet. Got a few games in and had a lot of people rage quit quickly because Light-Paws spirals out of control and just gets so strong so quickly. But that's the essence of the deck. Again, like, subscribe if you're not already. I'll be exploring a lot more as we delve into this set further. But the preliminary games that I have played this so far have been really impressive. This guy shines. He just wants to be in auras. His synergy is undeniable here. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the deck and the choices of the auras. In the future, I'm very excited to look into splashing other colors with Light-Paws, because one of the issues with this deck and this auras archetype is you have a lot of legendary creatures. So obviously, multiple Srams in your hand isn't good. Multiple Light-Paws isn't necessarily good. You can only have one in play at a time, of course. Kor Spiritdancer is a bomb, not even legendary. It probably should be. It'd be more balanced because it's so powerful. But the fact that these guys are legendary makes me very interested in exploring other splashes. So obviously, Azorius auras is kind of the de facto, maybe the best build of auras, but I still think mono white is really strong too for the consistency. But I'm excited to explore kind of a Selesnya package. Green offers a lot of strong auras that can draw you cards, as well as give creatures trample to just go over the top of decks so they can't chump block your massive creature. And what I wanted to say about splashing another color like green, we've got the white-green creature that can draw cards whenever you cast an enchantment, can function as another Sram or Kor Spiritdancer, as well as gain you life. And the interesting thing about that is that with that card, we could then start to shave down some of these cards, like run 3 Srams and maybe only 3 Light-Paws, or maybe even less than that, because we can spread these similar creature drawing effects over these legendary creatures and just have, instead of having 4 of each, we need to have 2 or 3 of each, and just make the deck all that much more efficient in that we don't have to worry about our hand getting fouled up with multiple legendary creatures of the same name, and we can't really go off, we can't cast them all. So definitely excited to explore Light-Paws and other builds as well. And of course, when we add another color to the mix, that just piques your curiosity. That's all the more auras we can explore and tutor for. Like I said, green has auras that give creatures trample. Blue has really strong auras to make creatures unblockable, which can be absolutely huge to just have a one of those types of auras and be able to tutor for them with Light-Paws. Of course, it's always going to tutor and go on Light-Paws himself, but when he's the target that you keep jacking up, and then you tutor like the blue aura to give a creature unblockable, that can be really powerful to just be able to find that on demand and get through and win a game that way. So Light-Paws, very interesting card, very great pickup for auras. I'm excited to explore it more. So again, like, subscribe, stay tuned to this channel. I appreciate you guys watching until the end. I'll definitely do more videos. We'll explore other color splashes. We'll also get away from auras too and explore lots of other crazy brews that this new Kamigawa set is enabling. So it's an exciting time for sure. The set's been a blast so far, what little I've played with it. But until next time, we'll explore other decks next time. But for now, we'll leave it at that, guys. If you're playing ladder, good luck on the ladder as always, and peace.